It's funny. Have you ever felt like you're doing all the right things with your money, only to look back and realize you were actually making a massive mistake? It turns out sometimes the biggest threats to our wealth aren't the flashy, obvious things. Nope, they're the invisible beliefs we have silently sabotaging our financial future. Today, we're going to dig into 5 of them. And we're not talking about small potatoes here. This number you're looking at, over $750,000, that's the potential price tag of making just one of these mistakes. And this isn't a made-up number. It comes from a real story of someone sitting on the sidelines for a decade. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? We're going to walk through this personal journey to really understand how these subconscious slip-ups happen so that, we can learn to spot them in ourselves and not make the same pricey mistakes. All right, let's dive right into our first wealth killer, the get-rich-quick trap. Oh man, this is a mindset that so many of us fall into, especially when we're younger, and we don't even see it coming. So try to picture this. You're in your early 20s, and it's right when Facebook is exploding. The air is just electric with these stories of regular people becoming millionaires, like overnight. That kind of environment creates this powerful illusion that the only real way to build wealth is with one giant, life-changing home run. So what happens when you're swimming in that culture? Well, the whole idea of slowly, consistently putting money into something like an index fund just feels kind of lame. I mean, why would you bother with an 8% return for the year when you hear stories about 1,000x returns from some IPO? It just seems slow, boring, and totally not worth the effort. And let's be clear, this isn't some old school story from the past. This all or nothing thinking is everywhere today. You see it with people pinning all their hopes on one crypto coin going to the moon, or betting big on risky trades. The real danger here is that it makes people give up on the proven, steady path to wealth because it just doesn't have the thrill of a lottery ticket. Okay, so let's talk brass tacks. What did this mindset actually cost? Let's break it down. It all starts with a pretty reasonable amount, right? Just $500 a month. Money that could have been invested, but wasn't. And we're not talking about a whole lifetime of doing nothing. This was just a 5-year window, in the early 20s when the focus was on chasing that big win instead of just starting small. So over those 5 years, that $500 a month would have added up to a total of $31,000 actually invested. It's a good chunk of change, for sure, but maybe not life-altering on its own. But here's the absolute magic, the jaw-dropping power of compound interest. That $31,000, if you just left it alone to grow in a simple S&P 500 index fund, could have turned into over $750,000 by retirement. That is the mind-blowing cost of waiting on the sidelines. And that's the big lesson right there. Doing nothing is doing something. It's actively choosing to accept a guaranteed return of 0%. While you're waiting for that perfect opportunity to come along, your money is guaranteed to be doing absolutely nothing for you. So that's the whole siren song of getting rich quick. But what happens when you're not moving because of greed, but because of fear? Well, that brings us to our next 2 wealth killers. And these are deeply psychological, and a lot of times we inherit them. First up, we've got the scarcity mindset. This is that deep down belief that there's just never enough to go around. It creates this powerful fear of letting go of money, whether that's spending it or investing it. And it's a belief system that often gets passed down directly from our parents. For instance, the narrator's dad, he grew up in a war-torn country. And because of that, he always kept $35,000 in a checking account, just in case. He actually sacrificed his own comfort, eating frozen meals, keeping the heat off, all because of this deep-seated fear that made him hoard cash. So what was the result? Well, the narrator ended up with over $40,000 in extra cash just sitting there. This money had no job. It wasn't an emergency fund. It wasn't for a down payment. It was just stuck, paralyzed by this fear he'd inherited. And all the while, it was losing its buying power every single day. And if you're someone who feels that fear, this is where data can be your best friend. Check this out.
This chart shows something amazing. Over a 20-year period, even an investor with the absolute worst timing, I'm talking investing at the very peak of the market every single year, still ends up with way more money than investor D, the person who just held on to cash.
All right, let's talk about our last couple of wealth killers, and honestly, these are the sneakiest of them all. They're the invisible forces in your environment, and frankly, just a total misunderstanding of what risk really is. Okay, this is such a powerful idea. The money ceiling. It's like this invisible cap that gets placed on your financial potential by the people you hang out with. I mean, if no one in your social circle is ever talking about investing or saving for retirement or building wealth, it just doesn't even pop up on your radar as something you should be doing. Think about it, right? If all your conversations with your friends are about what video games you're playing or your plans for the weekend, the whole concept of rebalancing a portfolio is just totally alien. It's not that your friends are bad, it's just that the environment isn't wired for financial growth, and that can really hold you back without you ever realizing it. And that leads us right into the final trap, being afraid of the wrong things. We get so fixated on the visible, headline-grabbing risks, like a scary stock market drop, that we become totally blind to the silent, invisible risks that are pretty much guaranteed to happen. So, what are these silent killers? Well, first, there's inflation. That's a guaranteed loss of around 3% of your money's value year after year. And second, there's opportunity cost, which is just a fancy way of saying that every single dollar that's just sitting in cash is a dollar that isn't out there working for you, earning you more money. So, okay, we've laid out all these sneaky subconscious traps. How in the world do you actually break free? Well, it's not about becoming some financial genius overnight. It's really just about being intentional and creating a super simple, clear system for your money. Here is the 3-step game plan. It's so simple. First, you build your safety net. Get that 3 to 6 month emergency fund locked down. Second, any other cash you're holding on to, give it a specific job, like this is for a down payment in 2 years. And then third, every single dollar that doesn't have one of those specific short-term jobs, it gets invested. You put it to work. So we'll leave you with this one last question to chew on. A lot of people think that holding cash is the safe move, that it's how you avoid risk. But it's not. You're not avoiding risk at all. You're just choosing a different kind of risk. You're choosing the guaranteed risk of inflation and missed growth over the potential risk of the market going up and down. So you have to ask yourself, which risk are you choosing?